It happened the summer before senior year, the kind of warm suburban night where everything should feel safe. I was 17, didn't have my license yet, so when Sierra invited me over for a little backyard hangout with the girls, my mom agreed to drop me off. Sierra lived just 10 minutes away. Casual, easy. Her mom was heading out for a date and joked before driving off, "If I'm not back by the time you're done, just find a ride or walk." At the time, I didn't think twice about it. When I got there, it was just the five of us. Sierra, Jenna, Morgan, Chloe, and me. Blanket in the grass, music low on Sierra's speaker, chips and soda in plastic bowls. It felt like a scene straight out of a high school movie. We talked about everything and nothing. College applications, celebrity crushes, which teachers were secretly unhinged. Then, out of nowhere, the mood shifted. I heard laughter behind the side gate, and suddenly 4 boys from school stepped into the backyard like they belonged there. And one of them was Logan. I froze. My stomach dropped. Logan and I had history. Not good history. The kind of history that leaves behind unease, blurry lines, and quiet trauma you don't really talk about because you're still trying to figure out what exactly happened and why it still makes you feel sick. And Sierra. Sierra hadn't told me he'd be coming. She gave me that sheepish look, the kind people use when they know they've betrayed you, but are hoping you'll play nice anyway. Later, she'd admit she thought she was helping, like this was some rom-com setup, and I'd thank her for fixing things. But I wasn't smiling. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and said I was leaving. Sierra tried to play it off. "Oh, come on, it's just Logan, he doesn't bite." I didn't answer. I was already walking toward the front yard, phone in hand, texting my mom even though I knew she was probably still out. Sure enough, no answer. I texted Sierra, "You seriously could have warned me." Her reply came quick, "Please come back. I didn't mean to upset you." But the damage was done. All I wanted was distance. The sidewalk was dim and empty. Porch lights flickered here and there, but the street itself was swallowed in shadows. The kind of quiet that should feel peaceful, but didn't. I had only been walking for maybe 5 minutes when I felt a little whisper of sound behind me. A scuff, a step, something not mine. I slowed down, and so did it. I turned around and saw him. A man, mid-30s maybe. Hoodie pulled low over his face, hands deep in his front pocket. He wasn't jogging, just strolling, calm and casual, and he was smiling. But not a friendly smile or even a creepy smile. Something worse, a smile that said, "I already know how this ends." "Hey there," he called. "How's it going?" Every hair on my body stood up. I gave a quick, "Hi," and picked up my pace. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe it was just coincidence. But every turn I made, he followed. "Perfect night for a walk, huh?" he said. "Yeah," I muttered. "You live around here?" he asked next. "No," I said, sharp. I didn't care how rude it sounded. I pulled out my phone and started texting like my life depended on it. Because it might. "Sierra, Chloe, anyone, help, please." No one answered right away. I glanced behind me again. He was still there, still smiling, still tracking every step I took. Then he said something that made me feel like the air had been yanked from my lungs. "Relax," he whispered. "I'm not going to do anything. You're that girl from near the school, right?" I stopped, fully turned around. He wasn't walking anymore, just standing there. That smile stretched across his face, like he'd peeled it from someone else. "Get away from me!" I shouted, and that's when he ran, straight at me. I turned and bolted. I don't remember making the decision. I was just moving, screaming, "Help! Somebody help!" Porch lights blinked on, windows cracked open, and maybe that's what saved me, because I heard him snarl behind me, "Shut your mouth, you stupid girl, before you regret it." Then his footsteps veered off, scrambling through someone's hedges and into the night. A couple stepped out onto their porch just in time to see me collapse in front of them, sobbing. I couldn't get the words out fast enough, but they didn't need much. The fear on my face was enough. They let me wait on their steps while I called Logan, the last person I wanted to call, but he was the only one who answered. He said he was already in his car. He'd come get me. When he pulled up, I didn't hesitate. I jumped in and locked the doors before he could even ask if I was okay. The drive back was a blur. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering, even though the AC was off. When we got home, my mom still wasn't back. The house felt hollow, vulnerable. Logan offered to stay for a bit. For the first time, I was glad he was there. We went upstairs, sat on the edge of my bed in silence, just breathing, letting the adrenaline wear off. And then we heard it. The crunch of gravel, the back gate creaking open. My mom never used the backyard gate. We both froze. We peeked out the window but didn't see anyone, until a voice, low and deliberate, called out from the shadows, "I'm watching you." I screamed. Logan jumped to his feet, fists clenched. "We've got the cops on the line, you sick creep," he yelled. And that's exactly what we did. I called 911 with trembling fingers, barely able to explain what was happening. But they came fast. Their presence was a balm. Logan described the man. I told them everything I could remember. My mom got home minutes later, and the moment she saw my face, she knew something awful had happened. They parked a patrol car outside our house for most of the night. But sleep? That never came. The next day, my mom went full mama bear, called in a security company, got cameras installed around the entire house, big, glaring ones, a sign out front to make sure people knew they were being watched. But I still felt like I was the one under surveillance, like his eyes were still on me. I stopped walking anywhere at night, didn't even want to be alone in our backyard. The memory of his voice, that smirk, the way he ran at me, it clung to me like smoke. A year later, my mom sold the house. She didn't say it out loud, but we both knew the reason. It didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt tainted and haunted. Not by ghosts, but by almosts. They never found him. I don't know if he lived nearby, if he'd been watching our neighborhood, if Sierra's house just gave him the perfect opportunity. But I know this. That night changed me. Now, even when I walk to my car in broad daylight, I look over my shoulder. Even when I'm safe, I double-check the locks. Even when I laugh, I feel it in the back of my head. That moment I realized some monsters don't wear masks. They smile and they follow you home. I wasn't planning to stop. Honestly, I was just trying to get back home to Mississippi before dark. I'd been in Savannah for over a week, staying with my sister and her kids. It was long, good, but long. So by the time I finally hit the road that morning, I was craving my own bed, like you wouldn't believe. Cruise control, black coffee, podcasts on low. That was the plan. But about an hour into the drive, something changed. A little red dot popped up on my phone. An Instagram DM. Nothing major. Just a reply to my story from someone I hadn't thought about in years. John Allen. He was one of those high school friends you don't quite remember why you drifted apart from. No drama, no falling out. Just time doing what time does. He replied with a casual, "Man, you're driving right past me. Swing through if you're not in a rush." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Then I typed, "Where you living now?" About 45 minutes later, I was taking an exit I'd never planned on. my GPS guiding me down narrower and narrower roads until I felt like I was leaving the world behind. John lived about an hour outside of Savannah, out in the sticks, practically where the asphalt gave up. His house sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, half swallowed by trees. It was old, not broken down exactly, but still, that kind of still that presses on your ears. The porch groaned when I stepped onto it. The wood felt soft, like it remembered footsteps from a long time ago. Before I could knock, the front door creaked open, and there he was, John, just like I remembered him, but more worn, like he'd aged in fast forward. "Damn," he said with a smile, "you actually came." "Guess I'm predictable," I said, and we hugged like it hadn't been almost a decade. Inside, the house smelled like old pine and dust, not dirty but unbothered, like no one had opened a window in months. We sat in the living room, poured whiskey, and let the hours unravel the way they always seem to with old friends. He asked about my job, my family. I asked about his. Turns out he never left town. Bought his grandparents' place a few years back. Worked construction out of Macon. "Gets lonely out here," he said, raising his glass, "but the quiet has its perks." We drank until the light outside faded from gold to purple. It was peaceful, but something about the silence felt weighted. "You're not driving tonight," John said, standing and stretching. "No way." I didn't argue. The alcohol had settled into my limbs, making the idea of a dark drive feel ridiculous. "I'll take the couch," I said, already pulling out my phone to plug it in. John waved me off. "Nah, spare room's down the hall. It's a little dusty, but it'll do. Beats crashing on hardwood, right?" He smiled as he said it, but there was something behind that smile I couldn't read. The hallway stretched off the main room, long and dim, like it belonged to a different house entirely. I stepped inside the guest room and instantly noticed the air was heavier, cooler, almost damp, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. The furniture was simple: a twin bed, an old dresser, and a lamp that flickered once, before settling into a dull yellow glow. There was a closet in the far corner. Door closed. I didn't bother changing, just collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, too drunk and too tired to care. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but it was dark. My mouth was dry as bone. My head spun with that warm, nauseous fog whiskey leaves behind. And then I noticed it. In the corner, near the closet door, something was there. I sat up, blinking hard. It looked like a long black coat hanging from a hook. Except, I didn't remember seeing a hook. And the shape wasn't right. It was broad up top, too broad, tapered down, but stiff, rigid, and it didn't move. Didn't sway in the breeze from the cracked window. It just stood there, watching. I told myself it was the alcohol. I told myself I'd just missed it when I came in. Maybe John had left a coat there. That was all. I rolled back over, closed my eyes, but I couldn't sleep, not with the weight of that presence pressing on my back. After a few minutes, I couldn't take it. I peeked over my shoulder. Still there, exactly the same. The shadows played tricks on it. But the shape? Unchanged. At some point, I drifted off again, unwillingly. I only remember the sound that woke me the second time. Creak. Not the house settling. Footsteps, soft and deliberate, just outside the door. The sky was just beginning to lighten, dawn slipping in pale gray through the blinds. I turned back to the corner. Gone. The shape, the coat, the figure, whatever it wasn't there anymore. I bolted upright, heart hammering. My hands were shaking before my feet hit the floor. I didn't stop to grab my flashlight or even put my shoes on. I ran straight to John's room. He was still dead asleep, sprawled sideways across the bed. "John." I shook his shoulder. He groaned, rolled over, blinked at me like I'd spoken in code. "What time is it?" "There was someone in the room," I said. "Or something. A coat or Jesus, I don't know. In the corner. I saw it. Twice." He rubbed his eyes, still half drunk. "I don't have a coat," he said after a long pause. "That room doesn't even have a hook." I waited for the punchline, the smirk, the gotcha, but it never came. He looked confused and tired and honest. "Let's go look," he said, pushing himself upright. We walked back down the hallway, his bare feet quiet on the wood. The room looked ordinary. The corner, empty. But the air was different, thick, like someone had just left and the space hadn't caught its breath yet. We checked everything. The closet, under the bed, even the crawl space panel in the hallway. No sign of forced entry. No black coat. No explanation. John leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Whiskey dreams," he offered. But even he didn't sound convinced. Maybe it was. Maybe my brain had melted all the stress and alcohol into one vivid nightmare. But I don't think so. Because nightmares don't stay with you like that thing stayed with me. Not in your ribs. Not in the back of your mind, whispering you didn't imagine me. As soon as the sun rose, I grabbed my keys. My phone charger was still hanging from the outlet by the bed. I left it behind. John didn't try to stop me, just walked me to the door and said, "Let me know when you get home safe." I nodded. We haven't spoken since. The whole drive back, I couldn't shake it. That thing. Its stillness, awareness, and absence. I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, expecting to see it in the back seat, in the shadows between gas station lights, reflected in diner windows. But I never did. And that's the worst part. I didn't see it again, but I felt it. In every empty room, every quiet hallway. Every night I turned off the lights, and that familiar pull in the corner of my eye whispered, "Still here." I still think about that night sometimes. Not often, but when the air gets cool enough or the woods feel too quiet, it creeps back in. The way fear didn't hit all at once, but bled in, slowly and patiently. I was 19 when it happened. My parents had planned this little road trip through Washington. Just a long weekend, some sightseeing, a theme park stop, and a night of camping. Kind of a goodbye to childhood, I guess. Nora came along, my closest friend since middle school. We were inseparable, and my parents adored her. Everything felt simple. We laughed the whole way up from Spokane, made playlists, argued over candy choices at the gas station. I don't even remember what theme park we were headed for. That's how irrelevant it became, because the night before the park, we had nowhere to sleep. We hadn't booked a campground, thought we could just roll in somewhere, pitch our tents, roast some marshmallows. But as we pulled into the city near the park, one sign after another read, "Full." Local tournament, they said, soccer. Every campground nearby was booked solid, so we started driving, 10, 20 miles out, then more. My dad, ever the stubborn traveler, refused to shell out money for a motel. "We've got tents," he kept saying. "We'll find a spot." Eventually, we pulled off into a state forest, dense evergreens, narrow dirt roads, quiet. A lone hiker passed us on the trail near the beach. My mom asked if he knew of a good spot to camp, and he pointed us to a gravel lot up the road. "People stay there all the time," he said. "It's remote, but safe." We found it easily enough. A wide, quiet lot ringed by trees, with a thin walking path to a hidden beach nearby. No lights, no other people. Except one thing. At the far edge of the lot, nearly swallowed by shadows, sat a car. Rust-eaten, slouched low on its tires. It looked abandoned, like it hadn't moved in months. But something about it just didn't sit right. The windows were tinted black, and even in the dim light, I had the strange feeling it was watching us. My mom suggested we set up near the opposite end. "Plenty of room," she said with a shrug. So we did. My parents took one tent, Nora and I shared the other. We laughed about the setting sun, joked about bears, talked trash about which roller coasters we'd conquer the next day. It felt normal. Sometime after midnight, Nora and I were still awake, watching TikToks on my phone, passing a bag of trail mix back and forth, wrapped in our sleeping bags like burritos. The forest outside was utterly silent. Then we heard it. Clang. A sharp metallic hit, like a shovel striking gravel. We both looked at each other, frozen. Then, slam. The distinct thud of a trunk closing from the direction of the old car. Seconds later, we heard tires screaming on loose stone. The car was no longer parked. It was leaving, peeling out of the lot like it had just finished something it didn't want to be caught doing. We both sat up, wide-eyed. I grabbed my phone and texted Eli, a friend of mine who lived about 40 minutes from there. I told him where we were camping, said something weird had just happened. His reply came fast, too fast. "Wait, that beach? Are you serious? People say that area's sketchy as hell. Doctor gangs, even trafficking. Be careful. Don't walk around there at night." Before I could even show Nora, a scream cut through the trees. A man's scream, low. Not pain exactly. Something more primitive, unhinged. So we froze. It didn't come from the beach. It came from the woods, behind us. I dialed my mom. My hands were shaking so bad it took 2 tries. She answered groggily. I told her everything, whispers, half-formed sentences. "I'm sure it's nothing," she said. But I could hear it in her voice. She didn't believe that either. We stayed on the line in silence. And then, footsteps, heavy ones, slow, right outside the tent. Not rushing, not stumbling, just walking. A single person, circling us. Then shifting direction, heading to my parents' tent. Then around the car. Then, silence. Nora's eyes met mine. We didn't speak, didn't breathe. Then came the worst part. Headlights, from the trees. Same direction the car had left. It came back. The beams lit up our tent like a stage. We dropped to the ground, hearts pounding like war drums. I peeked through the tiniest slit in the fabric, just enough to see a shadow step out of the driver's side. A man, tall, hooded. Then, without warning, he jumped back in the car and tore out of the lot again, vanishing down the forest road. But the fear stayed. I wanted to vomit, or run, or scream. But we just stayed there, paralyzed, until the second car arrived. This one was different. It was a police cruiser. Red and blue lights strobing through the treetops, tires spinning on gravel as it chased down the same road the man had taken. We stared at each other, wide-eyed, hearts still slamming against our ribs. We didn't say a word, just grabbed our pillows and bolted for the car, locked the doors, curled up in the back seat like scared animals. I kept watch, eyes on the tree line, expecting to see movement. Glints of eyes, flashlights, anything. Nothing came. But the silence, it was loud and full of things I couldn't see. I didn't sleep that night. At dawn, when the fear dulled just enough, Nora and I crept back to the tent for a quick nap. Just a few hours, just to recover something. When I woke up again, the sun was high and warm, but the chill hadn't left my bones. We packed fast. My mom didn't ask questions until we were on the road, but when I told her everything, step by step, she didn't look surprised. "I heard it too," she said quietly. "The footsteps?" She nodded. and breathing, right outside our tent. I didn't want to wake your dad. I thought, maybe it'd just go away. I stared at her. You didn't say anything. I was afraid, she whispered. I didn't know what would happen if I moved. My dad, for the record, slept through the whole thing. Later, after we got home, I couldn't let it go. I started digging online, looking up local news, Reddit threads, crime logs. And that's when I found it. 3 weeks earlier, a man had been found murdered in that forest, stabbed, gang-related. 2 more people had gone missing near that same beach. No trace, no updates. I clicked through article after article, my hands cold. It was real. We were in danger. But the worst part? The part I think about most? We'll never know who screamed. Never know what was in that trunk. Never know what that man saw when he circled our tents. I think about the way he walked, slow and deliberate, not scared, but confident, like he'd done it before. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I swear I hear gravel crunching. And I think about Nora, curled up beside me in that tent, eyes wide, lips pressed tight, and the way neither of us said a word, not because we didn't want to, because we knew something was out there, and it knew we knew.